Welcome to Asia Report, coming to you from Singapore. I've just been speaking to Greg Russell, the Senior Vice President at Telstra International here, about how their business is evolving in Southeast Asia. They've recently launched a virtual private LAN service and an Ethernet virtual private line service in the region, and they're using a dual point of presence strategy in each of the countries they're operating in. But the really interesting part is how the economic growth in this region is affecting Telstra's business.
On Tuesday we announced a further expansion of our infrastructure throughout Asia with a dual node delivery of services into Vietnam and Malaysia, which is part of a strategy that we've been developing over the last several years to provide a broader range and a greater level of service and infrastructure throughout the region.
How is the economic climate in Southeast Asia contributing to the demand for your services in countries like Vietnam?
Well, what we're seeing is, particularly in the manufacturing sector, is we're seeing what I like to term a China plus one or a China plus two strategy, whereby many companies, whether they be Japanese, European or North American, have very large manufacturing situations in China, but for them to broaden their coverage, be closer to their markets or mitigate any perceived or thoughts about risk, they would manufacture in a second or a third location, typically where the economic environment makes sense, such as the Philippines or Indonesia or Vietnam.
You were talking before we started recording about intra-Asia trade. How much of a business phenomenon in this region is that?
Well, that's a great question, because I think that's absolutely an increasing trend. I mean, typically people thought that business was between BPOs in India and the UK for IT services, or manufacturing in China and the US for goods and services for the forthcoming Christmas holidays. But what we find is an enormous amount of trade is within intra-Asia. As I mentioned earlier, half the world's population lives here. It's tremendous economic growth. You just need to look around, whether you'll be in Singapore or Hong Kong or any other country, where you can see the cranes up, the buildings being built, and goods and services being made available to a hungry population that's growing.
What do you see happening 5 years from now? How do you see Telstra's business, and how do you see this region in terms of the growth?
I think that economically, we will talk about China and India, but the intra-Asia business will be so important to the world's trade that we will be forced to extend our coverage, provide much broader services, and I think that that's going to drive innovation for communication services globally, and that's going to come from Asia.
For years now, China and India have been the growth story in Asia, but when you look at countries like Vietnam and Indonesia with their youthful workforces and high growth rates, it really shows that Asia is going to be the growth story for telecommunications for the next decade. This is Simon Carney reporting from Singapore for Telecom TV.